Hi, friends. I'm hoping you can't hear my AC unit. I'm hoping that my mic is doing its thing. It has been, so I just hope. But today is going to be a little different. Actually, for the very first time, I am going to read what I wrote because I think that the story that I'm about to tell you needs to be told in a specific way. I don't think that it would do it justice or maybe come out right, and also in an attempt to not cry. I'm hoping, despite the fact that I was crying when I wrote the one part, I'm hoping that I can make it through the video without crying. So I'm just going to read what I wrote and let my personality tell it how I've written it. And I'm not sure how long it'll be. The blog is pretty long. I am going to release what I wrote onto my written blog, but I also want to share it here because it's made an impact. So, and also something I've never experienced before. So, pardon me. Let's have a little sip of matcha and we'll get into it. Okay. So, I will just sort of say that this took place over a couple of days, and yeah, okay, I'll just read it. I was at home watching ghosty stuff on YouTube, as one does, while my spouse was out playing golf with a friend. He let me know that he was heading home from the course, and not even 10 minutes later, he called me and said, I found 3 kittens. He paused and said, I found 4 kittens. First off, I was dumbfounded because what? But then I immediately had questions. Questions like, do you need me to come out to help you? Do you have all of them? Is there a house close by that they could belong to? He did not need me to come out. He had all of them from what he could tell. There was one house close. He had put the kittens into his truck and gone to the fence of that house. He's in rural Alberta, and guard dogs who guard are a thing. So the dogs came to the fence. He yelled as loudly, as closely to the house as he could get without actually going onto the property, and there was nothing, no response. From there, we decided that the only option was to actually bring them home. And I want to mention here that it was 9 p.m. on Monday. Yeah, not exactly early. He arrives at home, and in that time, I had scrambled a plastic container of cat food, a bin with cat litter, and a water bowl out of what we had here at the house. I bring it all out to the house. I get it set up in the back of the truck, and then the adventure truly begins. My first thing to say is that they were so fucking cute. I could have died happily in that moment. It had been a really long time since I had enjoyed kittens or had the chance to enjoy kittens, and never have I had the opportunity to enjoy 4 of them. That being said, they did appear to be in really good condition. They knew exactly what to do with solid food. Gobble it, surprisingly, without any throwing it back up. A good sign they weren't without food for too long. Their ears were rather dirty, ear mighty. They didn't have those pudgy baby kitten bellies, but they weren't skinny either, which is a good sign. They didn't have any cuts or injuries of any sort. Overall, from what we could see, they were literally just happy, playful, loving little kittens. Also, they happened to all be males, which is interesting. Another thing to note, their eyes still had some blue, but also some color. A quick internet search had that transition happening between 8 and 12 weeks, so we had a rough age. A lesser known fact about Pumpkin is that that's our cat. If you're new here, that's our cat. He does not like other cats. He turns into some kind of wild beast, making noises that I don't think should come out of any domesticated house cat ever. We hoped it was something that would only plague him for a while after bringing him home, but it has endured. We did attempt to introduce the bravest little kitten, he happens to be orange as well, in a safe manner, but Pumpkin was not having it. He doesn't even like babies. If we ever dreamed of having another cat, we could surely throw that idea fully out during his lifetime. From there, we knew that they needed a place to go. As I was gathering supplies before my spouse had made it back to the house, I had also called bylaw/animal control, and I had to get that number through the 24-hour emergency vet in Red Deer. I knew that even if Pumpkin was okay with the kittens, they still wouldn't be able to stay. They needed homes. Animal control was closed, and I left a message. So back to us in the truck with the kittens after the failed introduction. We made sure Pumpkin was calming down and was all good. He was, and he does calm down basically as soon as the cat or kitten is gone. Then we got back in the truck and we called the 24-hour vet because it's 10 p.m. now and they're the only ones open to see if they can either take them overnight or if they have other late night resources. They did not have the space to take them overnight and they directed us to the RCMP. We then got directed from the Red Deer County non-emergency to the Innisfail non-emergency RCMP based on where my spouse, had found the kittens. What happens next is the first heartbreak of this adventure. The Innisfail RCMP officer we spoke with told us that they don't deal with cats and to leave them outside overnight. My spouse at that point basically was like, how much can I say to this officer without getting in trouble? Because how fucking dare you? If we wanted to leave those babies in danger, he wouldn't have picked them up off the road. Because they were actually on the road. Yeah. I said, I will leave that at that because I believe in law enforcement for protection and safety, but this particular officer was not someone I would want to ever deal with again. And we'll dig up some other important information about this county that the kittens were found in, like, later. So needless to say, animal control was a no-go for the night because they were closed, and the RCMP was not helpful at this point. At this time, we were just trying to buy time for overnight so that we could figure out everything in the morning. That's all we were trying to do this late at night. This might have been the point where my spouse went around the campground we stay at, asking anyone outside at that point, because it's late, if they could house the kittens for the night. To no avail. We also learned from the 24-hour vet that the Humane Society essentially has a drop box. I don't love that name, but it was a temperature-controlled room that had a lock on the outside and was at least a semi-safe place. I'm not gonna lie, I didn't like the sound of it, but we drove out there anyway. Upon arrival to the Humane Society, the doors for those drop box rooms or drop rooms had big signs saying not to leave animals there because they were at capacity. We still don't know whether that was accurate information or just a deterrent so people aren't shitty and dropping animals all the time. Yeah. We sat outside of the Humane Society, snuggling the kittens because at this point they were actually starting to get a little sleepy. They had full bellies and they had used the litter box, and so they were getting like snuggly and sleepy. And we went through our phones scrounging for anything that would keep them safe for the night. Our first thought was that I would just sleep in the truck for the night with them. I didn't have any kind of work in the morning, but my spouse did have work the next day, so his sleep was definitely more of a priority. Then it hit me. We have a friend, a couple, that moved recently into a place with extra rooms. Now, we hesitated because it was 10:30 at night now, but we called anyways with the hope that their love of animals would help. They also have a 3-ish-year-old cat and recently got another kitten, so their fuzzy family member safety was important as well. They did not hesitate. And I've never been more grateful to have asked for someone's help with something so important feeling. We're still trying to figure out how to repay them somehow because without them, I would have been sleeping in the truck, which would have complicated things so much more than we knew at this point because the timeline was not just a night. So we get those babies over to our friends. They have a room set up for them, safely tuck their kitties into their bedroom while we bring the kittens in and come out to help us carry the four little bundles into their house without having to worry about the door being open and their kittens escaping. We didn't get home until about 1 a.m. All four of us humans just sat there enjoying these babies and talking about the whole thing and planning for tomorrow. And I think in that moment was when I realized what my gut believed to be the reason for why they were on the side of the road, which I will get to with supporting evidence later. We get home, we are exhausted, we disrobe just in case for Pumpkin safety and get cleaned up to head to bed. I got a little sleep, which I would need, and in the morning we knew that the first rescue opened at 8:30, the next at 9 a.m., and the rest around us, like within an hour and a half, opened between 10 and 11 a.m. And we began calling. We discovered a couple things. A lot of these rescues only have emails, which felt like connecting by snail mail, if I'm honest. And the ones that do have phones let it go to voicemail. In other words, we were waiting to hear from someone, anyone, who could keep these kittens safe and find them proper homes. After we called and emailed a boatload of places, I got ready for the day and headed out to our friend's house because I knew, I knew that I wanted to be around the kittens, and also they were helping us out. And that meant we wanted to take care of the kittens and also, not have added to their day-to-day load. Even though we knew that they were really enjoying them, but still. Over the course of the next handful of hours, I scooped litter, fed the kittens, changed their water, played and snuggled these little babies. Right off the bat, they were all so sweet, so quiet, so calm but playful. I jokingly called it kitten chaos, but in reality, there was no chaos. They played, but they weren't climbing and parkouring off everything, which was my general kitten experience in the past. They were eating, drinking, and never had a single mess outside of their makeshift litter box. I went home for a little bit, disrobed again, and this was giving me flashbacks from when I worked in pet stores and I would come home to immediately take my work clothes off so that I didn't risk spreading anything from work to Pumpkin. Because Pumpkin's been around for a while. He's like 8 or 9, and we've had him since he was like a year old. So he's been around for a hot minute. And I spent those couple hours literally snuggling Pumpkin. He needed it, and I was happy to give that to him always. I headed back over to our friend's house after the Pumpkin snuggles, and the kittens were kittening as expected. This is the point where their little bellies started to pudge up like they should be. They also weren't overeating. Like, it's hard to explain how they just seemed like well-rounded kittens in a house, like they'd always existed there. All in all, the first full day, I spent a total of 8 to 9 hours with the kittens, and my sweetie was in and out. He was mainly in charge of manning the phone calls and emails, finding homes. The second heartbreak came when rescue after rescue connected and they were at capacity and could not take these 4 kittens in. I love that our shelters and rescues are no kill, but that does mean that they are almost always strapped for space and resources. It's a huge problem that goes deeper than I'm going to speak about today. While we're not shocked, the more and more we heard this, the more we got discouraged. But we knew we needed to forge on for these kittens. It was also at that point, through talking to the rescues, that we learned that Innisfail County, the RCMP officer, sorry if you can hear the cat, the RCMP officer who worked for that county and told us just to leave them outside. I wish that I was dramatizing that, but those were his exact words. But this county doesn't have funding or work with any rescues to take on cats. They can help dogs, but they cannot help cats. That officer chose to be a dickhead instead of explaining that sad but simple fact to us. It wouldn't have helped, but we would have had at least understood. Now we have a bad taste in our mouth, which literally could have been avoided by just telling us the fact that they don't have funding to rescue cats. That's all it would have taken. But now we're mad instead. Anywho, finally, we hear back from one of the rescues who can take all 4 kittens. They are foster based, which means that they will be placed in a home with a foster human before going off to their forever home instead of being in a facility, which is, in my opinion, like a little lucky. Not that there's anything wrong with the facilities, because they still have the same goal in mind, you know, finding homes, happy, healthy homes for these pets. But, you know, they've got like a different homely human touch in a foster. Anywho, they would have full health checks, be neutered, which I realized through this is actually terribly even more important to me than I thought. They would be microchipped, quarantined, and then put up for adoption to find homes. They also offered the option to have our friends onboarded as fosters for the specific case because they were already set up and so on, and they would actually provide food, litter, so on. Kitty, please. And I think our friends would have loved that, but the reality was that their life would not allow it right now, and it was best to have them go to a foster home. In the meantime, another foster-based rescue had also reached out, offering the same care, but this one deals with cats and kittens only. We have decisions to make. I think this might be the point to explain why my gut thinks that these kittens were dumped where my spouse found them, and I'm probably gonna cry. So, it's just gonna happen. They were eating solid food, which we deduced gave a small timeline in the sense of whoever had them had allowed them to be weaned before sending them to their potential doom. They were all together in a rural area. The likelihood of 4 kittens fleeing a property altogether felt small. They did not run from humans. In fact, they followed my spouse back to his truck. They knew exactly what a litter box was for and exclusively used it during the time we had them. They also seemed incredibly comfortable in a home environment. And they were also found in a county that can do nothing about rescuing cats, which we learned is actually a problem for this county / those surrounding, and there's no way to catch these people unless they're literally in the act of dumping cats. Now, some may think that I'm making this information what I want it to be, but why would I want this to be the case? Why would I want this beautiful little batch of kittens to have been left? Excuse me, sir, I'm busy. Boop the snoot. Okay. Literally, if my spouse hadn't found them, they would have probably been eaten or ran over. That's harsh to say, but it's the reality of rural Alberta. It is a theory that I feel in my gut, and there is evidence to support, but we will never actually know, and that's the hardest part. Also, I'm gonna let my opinion fly a little bit. I've likely, I know on YouTube, I've definitely not expressed this before. People who wrong or harm animals are the lowest scum and slime of the world, and they deserve whatever the fuck is coming to them. Yeah. In my opinion, animals are the purest form that I believe exists on this earth, and we are extremely blessed to be able to share life with them. I am grateful for animals and only want to do good by them. Not just our pets or family's pets or, animals you know. If I get the chance to help any animal and I have the means to help, I will. Okay. Rage out. Back to our decisions. Well, the cat yells at me, which you probably can hear because I don't think that my mic cancels the cat out. So we have 2 rescues in the meantime that we've set up fosters with, and we have nothing more that we can do that day. So we decide that the kittens can stay the night again with our friends. I said safety first, kids. And like I said, the fosters, we had 2 set up for the next day to be safe, and they both knew and were on board with receiving a final decision in the morning, which is to me actually a sign that they're not in it for just getting all the cats and getting all the money. They're in it for the proper thing, finding these animals the best choices and the best homes, the best care. So that was amazing. And I'm actually really grateful for them for waiting for the answer. Hold that thought. Come here. Okay. He likely just wants to go over by the window. Or outside. Anywho. So, Wednesday morning, a coworker of my spouse and friend of ours calls to say that his mom's close friend wants 3 of the 4 kittens. She had already convinced her husband up from 2 to 3. We spoke with this lady over the phone. She explained her life, her career, her family, her home, her passion for animals. She's a groomer, and also she trains and shows dogs. Not to mention they have 6 kids, aka always someone to play and snuggle those kittens. Okay, well, this will be the first video that I have a cut in because my spouse came home. So, anyways, back to the story. This is the part. It's probably going to make me cry. So, we had just talked to someone about wanting 3 of the 4. I initially broke down really hard. I actually broke down multiple times over the course of the day, if I'm honest, because my initial reaction was that 3 of the kittens would get to live their life together and 1 would be left to find a home alone. 3 of them would get to go be with their siblings and comfort, and 1 would be left. That's what it felt like in my mind. I understand that the animal kingdom isn't really like that. And I understand and resign myself to the fact that they likely would all be split up, or at the best hope was to go in pairs. I had come to terms with those facts, but I had not anticipated any future for these kittens where they would stay all together or mostly together. That's just not how rescues usually work. And the thought of just one of them, the thought of, will he look for the rest? Will the rest look for him? My deepest hope is that they're young enough that they will quickly forget and just live their little kitten lives. But we'll never know. That is the final heartbreak of this adventure. And I think the one that will continue to weigh on me, despite the positives and the happiness. That's the one that will haunt me a little. And that's okay, and something that I believe that I will work through. But right now, it's literally this week that this happened, so it's still wildly fresh. So, the final decision. We spoke with the rescue that we had decided on. They said that they would take just the one, and that's something that eased my soul in this moment, was that she said that she had just taken in another little kitten and she would pair them up together. So he wouldn't be alone after all. Which also makes me want to cry, because I didn't want him to be alone in the transition to his new home. I'm trying not to be a blubbering idiot. Okay, so at 3 p.m. on Wednesday, we took the one little kitten to Whisker Rescue. They are a rescue in Red Deer, Alberta. They deal only with cats and kittens. So the lady we dealt with was fantastic. Like, I actually can't explain how lovely she was. And where we left her with the kitten, they also have some cats there, and you could tell she just knew who they were and their little personalities, and it was actually quite a funny experience. So she also figured that this little kitten was about 9 months old, so that's very young. And the kitten she was going to pair him with apparently looked identical in color and markings and was near the same age. It was a relief to see whose hands he would be in, and that he would be in a place where he could be cared for and loved forever. You could genuinely see that, like, she loves these animals, and that gave me some peace. Next, the family that wanted the 3 kittens lives in Sherwood Park, which is near Edmonton, and we decided to meet them in Leduc, which is just south of Edmonton, to bring them to their new home. We drove out there, and you could see their excitement. They had recently put down their very old cat, and you could tell that they had missed cats. I guess they still have one, and they have dogs and all sorts of other animals, because they're on 5 acres of land, which is cool. But 2 promises that they made was that they would be indoors until they knew where their home was, like months, and that they would be neutered, which we talked about already. And the reason they wanted to do it this way and not go through the rescue is because they have specific vets that they like. And that's fair, and because someone we know knows them, we want to trust that information. So the ride home felt surreal, because how do we just find kittens? And then how do we just spend 2 days caring for them and finding them the best places we could find them? In 2 days, we became so attached, and that only made us want to fight harder to save them. We knew we couldn't take them among ourselves, and we also knew we wanted to make the right decisions for them. They can't speak for themselves, so that left us speaking for them. I would 1,000,000% do this again, tears and all, and there have been many tears. I kept it a little together for YouTube. We laughed so hard at how silly these kittens were, and we snuggled them, and we made every second they were in our care count. We will likely never know if the decisions we made for these kittens were the correct ones. That's something we will have to live with. The one thing bringing a little peace to my soul is that we saved them. I also just found out yesterday, that's Saturday, that my spouse had thought about grabbing a drink after a round of his golf with his friend at the clubhouse, and they decided not to, which means that if he had stayed for his drink, he probably wouldn't have found them. In my mind, we were exactly who was supposed to find them, exactly who they needed to be found by. That is all that I can hold on to now, and the memories of the 2 days of loving and caring for these kittens. This was an adventure of a lifetime. I've always had respect for people who are trying to rescue animals, but that has increased tenfold or more. A likely terrible situation that sadly happens all the time. I'm not blind to that. Led to an experience that I won't ever forget, and I might be forever a little changed by. I say, as Bob Barker used to say, if you were ever a fan of Price is Right before Drew Carey, you had Bob Barker, and he always used to say, "Spay and neuter your pets." But I believe in this too, so spay and neuter your pets, folks. And I'll try. I should be able to put some pictures up so that you can see them. Um, we called them literally by their colors, but the orange one, the black and white one, the big gray one, and the little gray one. The orange guy is actually who my spouse saw first, and kind of like the one who got everyone saved because he led them back. He led my spouse back to the rest of them. And my spouse had said, "I've got 3 kittens." And then all of a sudden, I've got 4 kittens, because in the meantime, the little gray one had screamed at the top of his tiny kitten lungs from the tall grass beside the road so that he wouldn't be left behind. So he got saved because he yelled, which is so funny, but also it makes me so happy he yelled because we didn't leave him behind. Okay, so this was our adventure this week. This is not like any of my other videos. Generally, when I talk about something during a video, I've like already processed it, so to speak. I usually like talk about it when I have like a full circle about it. I do not have a full circle about this. The rescue where we left the black and white one, they let us know that we can reach out and we can keep in contact with them. And obviously, because our friend knows the person who has the 3 kittens, we could probably check up on them. I just want to believe that they're all going to be loved and cared for and healthy and happy. And yeah, I have to believe that, because if I don't, I will literally be crushed. I can't do that. But that being said, the reason that I still have this feeling of potential of being crushed is because I haven't processed the situation yet. I am absolutely focused on the positives of everything that we've gone through, but I'm still going through the motions of or the emotions of the situation. So I have no doubt that I will recover emotionally, but also I realize now even more, because I always knew, but I realize now even how hard it is to foster, and what it's like if you're someone like in the realm of rescue. So while I'm not, like I said, a stranger or, I don't have a blind eye to any of this stuff, I'm feeling it on a deeper level now. So if you made it through, leave a cat emoji in the comments. Yeah. Or if you have a cat, well, we could start a thread of cat photos. And I'm hoping that I can get some kitten pictures up so that you can actually see them. They will melt your soul in a good way. But thank you as always. And yeah, we'll see you on the next one.